What if your D&D games felt more like Studio Ghibli, or had the whimsical nature of Zelda? Well, Obojima, Tales from the Tall Grass, that's this book by the way, is heavily inspired by both of those, and today we're going to be looking into it. This is book number 56, I think. First impressions, the book is really well made, really sturdy spine, really good colours, really good print, high quality pages, solid spine, and as you can clearly tell, the cover gives a great detail about what to expect. It's about a little girl befriending a skeletal whale shark. But like I said, it's really well made product, and I think the guys, 1984 Games, who made this have found a pretty big niche in the market. I haven't really found anything like this myself. I'm sure there's plenty out there, but me personally, I haven't seen much like this. Then again, it's not really the kind of thing I personally tend to go for. As I said, this isn't the kind of book or D&D supplement that I would normally go for. It's a full setting guide about the island of Obojima. And with that being said, it focuses more on the whimsical nature of things, finding magic in the mundane, more focus on the cozy side of things, and most importantly, more a focus on narrative over sort of more combat. You still can have combat, but the focus with this book is more focusing on the cozy details, the descriptions, and as I said, finding magic in the mundane.
It's a nice piece of stone.
As for the setting itself, Obojima, like I said, is an island and is surrounded by the endless ocean. And very much like for those of you who've seen Attack on Titan, nobody knows what's beyond the walls. Nobody in Obojima knows what's beyond the horizon, other than the endless ocean. People who leave the island never come back. It's a big old mystery. Nobody knows. But the island house has multiple cool, distinct locations. There's all things from like a diver's lodge to witches' covens to like fighting schools and things. So there's a lot for a DM to grasp. There's even a full timeline as well for DMs to sort of think about and place adventures in. The timeline features things from a nefarious evil god all the way to a literal vanishing mountain that can just reappear.
I'm so happy with these flowers and how far they've come along over the last year or so. I hope nothing bad happens to them over the next few days. That would really make me sad. Good morning, world. What the fuck?
So probably the biggest threat to Obojima is the mountain just appearing and landing on an entire village and killing everybody. Another cool thing about Obojima is it uses something called First Age relics, and although most setting books have something of this kind, Obojima does it slightly differently. They have 1980s sort of analog themed gadgets and gizmos within the book. So you might have a vending machine in the wild that houses maybe magic items. You might stumble across a floppy disk that is actually the key to a secret vault. Or maybe that floppy disk is the very thing that the antagonist is after. I think that's it for that bit. That's the island. That's all I want to talk about. Get out of my face. But there's very little I can say just sat here. I think it's best if we let our sponsor, our unofficial sponsor by the way, Spirit Away Destinations, talk to you more about the lovely island of Obojima.
Seeking that sun-kissed look this summer? Fancy a place literally surrounded by endless water and surprises? Then why not get away to the unique island of Obojima? Prefer walking holidays with historical breaks? Visit the Temple of Shum, an old temple partially submerged in Lake Elior, and explore its mysteries. Meet the Nakudama frog and learn of their culture. Seeking novelties to take away with you? Wander through the sprawling spirit market. Uluwa. I think I butchered that. A place only accessible by invitation or by ferry crossing. A strange, exciting and magical maze filled with quirky vendors and quirkier goods. What's that? You're missing home? Why not check out Okiri Village? A warm, comforting place that will feel just like home. A place that ignores, or is at least unaware, of any outside or catastrophic threats that pose the island. And who could forget Yatamon, the First Age city? A hub of trade, a busy, diverse place that's filled with magic. If you spend long enough here, you may even leave with a cantrip of your own. Obojima truly has something for everyone, and right now if you buy a ticket, we'll even throw in a free hat to keep that pesky sun off your head, or even that pesky corruption off your noggin. Spirit Away Holidays. Find out what's beyond that horizon.
So what makes the book unique? First things first, the spirit system in here. I say spirit system. The spirits in this book are a big part of Obojima. They're a part of everyday life on the island. Celestials, Fae, Aberration are all relabeled under spirits. The only thing that remains from kind of the core 5e monster types, I suppose, is the fiends, and they are spirits still, but they've undergone some sinful transformation which makes them really evil and nasty. Also very different to traditional 5e is that there are only 2 realms, that being the physical realm, like me and you would live in, and then there's the spirit realm, which is just another place, and you can enter said spirit realm at different locations across the island, areas where the veil is much weaker than it would be. So it could be right next to a massive village, it could be right next to the Vanishing Mountain, or it could be in a forest where there's just a lovely little pond and somehow spirits are leaking through. And there's a whole section of this book which goes into how to have spirits as allies, or even to have one as sort of a companion, and how they can be either someone who is maybe quite mischievous and doesn't really understand the rules of sharing, as it were, or maybe someone who is, maybe it's a spirit that is actually just really calming and really anxious about being away from the spirit realm. But there are rules in there as well as stat blocks on how to create and run spirits. Another thing quickly to mention is the corruption side of things in Obojima. It gives big Ashitaka vibes from Studio Ghibli. It's very mysterious, very opaque around its history and surroundings, which I think is done purposefully, more for DMs to sort of explore and sort of make their own theories from, which obviously you can do anyway if there was a written rule about where it comes from. But even in the book, I think it's, as far as I can remember, it's fairly ambiguous. So to clarify, it's more of a world that you would want to visit. There's a lot of markets, there's a big city, a couple of villages, a diver's lodge, as I said. There is still the corrupted zone, and there is still corruption around, but compared to the likes of other Forgotten Realm books like Dragonlance, for example, which is basically just a solid war campaign, this is maybe a place that you would actually want to spend time in, check out the markets, and cycle along its lanes. Cycle along its lanes, there we go. So let's talk about some other good stuff. There are 2 new species within Obojima, one being the Dara. That's not the one I was actually going to check. We were like seen as forest wanderers. The other one is the Nakudama, otherwise known as frog. Humans and elves still exist within Obojima. Some of them even have something called a Oka mark, which essentially grants elves sort of maybe some additional blessings. You might get some more spells and new cantrips at certain levels and whatnot. Important to mention as well, something that they've done in this book that I haven't really seen elsewhere, is they have put limitations on races and whatnot. So Dragonborn don't traditionally exist in Obojima, but what they've done is they left a little page to go, hey, if there's someone who really wants to play a Dragonborn, you can bring them in. Here are some ways you can go about doing that. Saves you any trouble. They just go, hey, look, here's the option to do so. Roll with that. Which I think is cool. There's of course new backgrounds that are tied to different regions. You may have a connection with one of the Witches' Covens, which is actually pretty big, like lore-wise in Obojima. Or you may have a connection with the Diver's Lodge, which may grant you a free room or free access to, I don't know, the submarine, or a wetsuit, not a wetsuit, an underwater suit, an underwater breathing suit, a snorkel, what are they called? And of course there's loads of classes here, which I'm actually going to discuss in a separate video, because I want to try and keep this video fairly short and succinct. But you should see it up here, maybe, if I've done it yet. If I haven't, it'll be up soon. Of course, there's also some new gear, things like the bark armor, which is leather equivalent.
This is so dumb.
Gives you advantage on stealth checks when you're in forested areas. Diver armor, which is what I was trying to say earlier. What are they called? Which gives you an AC of 17, water breathing, very heavy though, so as normal 5e rules, not for those with a lower strength score. One thing that is new with Obojima is an optional shield rule. Instead of just having a shield as an AC buff, shields have their own independent HP, and when an attack comes in, a player can use a reaction to essentially try and block that attack. The shield's HP gets damaged instead of the player's HP, or at least absorb some of the damage. When the shield breaks, it's broken, it needs to be repaired by a blacksmith, or they need to get a new shield. And I quite like that. It gives shields a bit more of like a actual practicality, instead of just like, haha, my AC, my armor class is increased because I have a shield now. It's like, oh, actually, I'm going to go down if I take this full blow. I'm going to use my shield to donk. Okay, I can fight on for another round. My AC's lower, but I've managed to negate that damage. Similar to like the, I guess in a way to compare it to something, it's like the Goliath's racial trait, where they can negate damage by like 1d12. Other things that are really cool is things like the umbrella. Essentially gives you the option to reduce any potential fall damage, and the frying pan, which gives you a +1 to your AC. I also just really like the idea of just whacking someone over the head with a frying pan.
Shit.
Potion brewing. This is one of the biggest sections and one of the bigger selling points of Obojima. It's a really big section of the book. I'm talking like 16 pages of just ingredients. And I say this is one of the biggest features, one, because it's a system that I think could transfer to any setting or any D&D game if you want to bring potion crafting into your world. And two, because it is just a big part of the book. So to clarify, there are 3 different types of potion that you can get. There's whimsy, there's utility, and there's combat. The system is pretty simple. You find the ingredients that you need within the world of Obojima. They can be bought, but most of the time they will have to be found. You determine the attributes of said ingredients, and then you get a total sum at the end. I'll put an example here on screen, maybe. You pick out the highest attributes from each ingredient, that gives you a sum total. You find that potion number, and that's the potion you've managed to brew. It's fairly simple, and I think it's easily transferable into many other things. And I say this like it's something very easy, but Obojima potion brewing is not easily mastered and can end up with some complications. So even if your players think it's going to be an easy breezy kind of ride, they may be sorely mistaken with what can happen with the accidents from potion brewing. Another cool system is the hero boon system. Let me tell you a bit about that now. This allows the DM to essentially award boons, similar to like feats in a way, almost like half feats, maybe sort of abilities, whatever you want to call them. Allows the DM to award specific boons or banes to players who have maybe overcome something in their narrative, character-wise. Let's say your paladin stands in front of your team as you guys are slowly surrounded by, I don't know, a corruption flooding. It's trying to give you guys time to battle off with the shield. At the end of it all, you somehow survive from maybe some Deus Ex Machina moment, and from that your DM could award the paladin with the selfless boon. Boons can be removed in the same way. Let's say the paladin gets said selfless thing and then decides to steal some gold from a peasant. After stealing said currency, the DM can then be like, well, that goes against that boon that I've just given you, so I'm going to take that away from you. And boons and banes can be multiple boons, multiple banes can be dished out and taken away in the space of 5 minutes or less. It's entirely up to the DM's discretion here. The bestiary. The artwork in this book is fantastic. It's all made by humans. It's all great. It's all whimsical. It's all Ghibli style. It's great. All of it is wonderful. It's consistent throughout the book. It's all really good. But a couple of things that I wanted to like just announce and raise attention to, because there's some of my favorite like bits or moments of the bestiary are as follows. 1, a giant cat sleeping under a tree. 2, the dragons. You get the impression that this guy has, his heroic days behind him. He's just a chill guy now. He's just a chill dragon dude. The giant koi, possibly the smallest CR25 stat block I've ever seen. And finally, the Sky King, otherwise known as Eren Yeager in DreamWorks' Shark Tale, an adaptation we'll never get to see. Actually, in a minute. And now I want to quickly touch on some areas that maybe weren't up for me, or maybe I think I want to draw attention to. As I said at the very beginning of this video, this book is not aimed at someone who is trying to do a heavy combat campaign. It is very much aimed towards narrative, and combat still can happen, but especially with the antagonist, which again is another section in this book, which is very well done. It talks about how antagonists shouldn't be necessarily a strong force of evil, and they should have maybe some strong motivations behind them, things that the players can really get on side with and sympathize for the antagonist. It's not Sauron from Lord of the Rings necessarily. It could be a misunderstood spirit, to people who've fallen out of love. It could be a number of things that the players are then required to try and fix. Another thing to touch upon as well, very briefly, because it relates to my point in a second, just bear with me. Magic items in this book are fairly limited to very rare as the more or less maximum. It doesn't give you any legendary items. The highest thing they give you in this book for magic items is very rare. Again, all of those items that they give you are fantastic. They're very well flavored. They're very cool. One of my favorites is the anglerfish helmet. Another one is the game toy, and another one is the bell of resonance. But you won't find any legendary items in here because Obojima is designed to not be, this big heroic thing. It's meant to be these fairly linear, enticing adventures, exactly like Studio Ghibli is in a way. Tackling maybe big themes and big genres and whatnot, but very much these are small, narrative-focused stories. You won't be finding a Vorpal Greatsword in here.
What the hell, man?
But it doesn't mean you can't have a Vorpal Greatsword. Your DM might still allow you.
Oh, yeah.
you know, then everyone's happy. And the only like slightly, not negative, I wouldn't call this a negative, but the only thing I wanted to again raise is that the potion system is simple, but the 16 pages of ingredients could use some prep. So if you're going to send your party out to do some ingredient checks, maybe just have a list prepared. But again, your party should be okay if you go, I just need a second to, you know, look through the pages and work out what potion you get. So verdict and conclusion, who should buy it? I think fans of Studio Ghibli and fans of Zelda would really enjoy this book. The art alone, you know, even if you just put that on your coffee table, I think it's great. I think it's great. If you're a DM who wants to run a cozy one-shot or wants to run a narrative-focused campaign that doesn't involve much combat, is fairly low stakes maybe, then this book's pretty good. You can have high stakes by all means. In this book, there is enough in there to have high stakes. Spirits especially present themselves as a big high stakes moment. But you know, there's plenty of lore and setting information to dig into to keep contained stories or to have, you know, these larger scale moments. If you're looking for a really simple potion making mechanic or system, then Obojima is definitely the one to do as well. Who might not want it? I guess if you're a DM who enjoys combat and your players enjoy combat, then maybe this book isn't too suited to you. And anyone who's looking for, like me, a morally questionable villain or complex backdrop of grim dark fantasy with like hints of high fantasy, then this book probably isn't for you. As I said at the very beginning, this is not the kind of book I would go for traditionally, but I still think it's a very, very good product, and I still think it's very well made. So my rating, it's physically well made, content is great, gold.